O Holy Night. What a beautiful song, and Angela, thank you for a beautiful singing of it. O Holy Night. Now, I would understand if you have a question at this point in your mind. I want to assure you, I know it's the middle of January. I can assure you, I realize that Christmas is over. I can assure you that the Christmas tree is gone. The Christmas decorations have been taken away. The banners are put up. I know it's no longer Christmas. And yet, O Holy Night was a song that I think we had to hear today. Do you know the history of this beautiful song? In 1847, in France, there was a gentleman by the name of Placide Cappeau. He was a wine merchant. He more or less belonged to the church in a small little village. And as it turned out, his parish priest asked him one day, "Would you write a poem about Christmas for us?" He was a wine merchant, but his real love was literature, and he was an avid poet. Even though that, he wasn't real excited about doing this, because he was one of those dotted line church people. He really didn't get into Christmas. He didn't really care that much about what was going on in the church. But he loved poetry. So he said, "I'll give it a try." Legend has it was that he couldn't get inspired about it, so he picked up the Gospel of Luke. And he read it. And he put himself in that place, in that moment where the newborn babe was born by that manger with Mary and Joseph. He in his mind, put himself there. And on a carriage ride, supposedly, into Paris, he wrote it. The inspiration came. He wrote what would become O Holy Night. But he wasn't quite content with that, because he felt like surely a poem like this could be better with music to it, to create a song. Adolphe Adams was an acquaintance of his. Adolphe Adams was actually a Jewish gentleman, but he was a classical composer. So Cappeau went to Adams and said, "I've got this poem. Would you consider putting it to music?" Adolphe was not really excited about that. Christmas had no meaning for him. But he read the poem, and he heard the words that went beyond Christmas. So in 3 weeks' time, he created the music that went along with the poem. On Christmas Eve, 1847, what would become O Holy Night, the French version, was sung in the church for the first time. Immediately, it became a favorite. The people understood the power of this music, and it was sung. O Holy Night. But an interesting thing happened in that Adolphe was Jewish. Placide was really not that interested, and he left the church. He was tired of the games. Enough was enough. When the hierarchy heard about that, they immediately said, "You know what? We need to take a look at this song." And they immediately ruled it as no longer usable in the church. Number one, it really wasn't that religious. And number two, it wasn't good music. They banned it from the church. Do you want to make a guess what the people said? They sang it anyway. They could have cared less what the official ruling was. It was a song that had touched their hearts. It was a song that had meaning to them, and so they sang it. Interestingly enough, 10 years later, a gentleman by the name of John Dwight, an American who understood French, came across the French version. He was an abolitionist in the North. He was fighting slavery. And the second verse, I don't know if you caught the words in that, "Chains shall he break. The slave shall be our brother, and in his name all oppression shall cease." he heard that, and he too realized this song was not just about Christmas. And so he introduced it, he translated it into English and introduced it to especially the northern states in America, where it likewise became wonderfully received and sung and sung and sung. O Holy Night. It's not just about Christmas. It goes way beyond there. Well, I have a story also about O Holy Night. Because in the first part of December of this last year, I was sitting in my little room in the apartment working on things, and I was on the internet, and if you ever done that, sometimes on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see some invitations to hit a link and go someplace else. I don't know why, but there, one of the links was O Holy Night, the version by Celine Dion. I don't know why, but I hadn't heard O Holy Night in a long while. I needed to hear it. I hit that button. And there was Celine, singing it, almost as good as Angela. And it just stopped me. Can you eat just one chip, potato chips? I can't. I had to listen to it again. This time, if you opened it up on YouTube especially, every single artist in the world, I think, has sung this song. Josh Groban was the next up. If you know Josh Groban, he can sing fairly well too. His rendition of O Holy Night, I listened. But this time I listened. Maybe I was like John Dwight, that it hit me. But this time it was the first verse. The first verse, how the world was in pain, till he appeared and the soul felt its worth. What do you do with that? The soul felt its worth. And immediately I had to play with that of what does that really mean? What about me? Have I felt that my soul has worth? Now, that's a different question of thinking that I have a soul. I've resolved that many, many years ago. That I'm convinced that everybody has a soul. We have a spirit. But this was something different about the soul has worth. I remember many years ago when I was in college, I should say many decades ago by now, in our anthropology class, had a professor who told a story one time about missionaries who went to the deepest, darkest jungle in South America. You know, it always has to be the deepest, darkest jungle for some reason, but that kind of sets the stage. It was back. And there was a tribe there that had never seen the white man. And the missionaries had them high on their list that they knew they existed and they needed to be converted to Christianity. So these two missionaries went and they spent years trying to find them. And the story goes that finally they started realizing they were getting closer. They were getting closer. And finally, on the day that they realized they had found this tribe, they were finished their journey. And they walked into the wooded part just before the tribe. And they heard this heavenly sound. Part chanting, part singing. And they just had to stop in their tracks. The beauty of the music. They said, oh, we're interrupting a worship service. We need to kind of be quiet. So they took a few more steps into the clearing so they could see the people down below in the valley, the tribe. And there they were. They were standing in a circle, their hands raised, their eyes up to the sky, and their voices sharing something. A chant, a song. They didn't understand if that was even language, but it was something so beautiful. They just had to soak it in. As they got to know this tribe, they found out that yes, that really was a time of worship. But you know what? They didn't have a name. Not Yahweh, not Jehovah, not God, not Allah. They had no name. But they had recognized that there was something bigger than them. There was a power, an essence, a life force that was so big that it was much bigger than them, but it connected with them. It was their lifeblood. It was in them. It was around them. It lifted them up. This soul was indeed part of their life, part of their relationship. I learned many years ago that soul, spirit, is what we have. But see, that's a different story about feeling that our soul has worth, like this song talked about. So I'm there thinking about, what does it mean? What does it mean that our soul felt its worth, that we have felt that our soul has worth? What does that mean? I think Isaiah, in today's passage, can help us get a glimpse of what that might mean. Let me read this to you. It's in your bulletin if you want to follow along. This comes from the 42nd chapter of Isaiah, the 5th, 6th, and 7th verses. Thus says God, the Lord, who created the heavens and stretched them out, who spread out the earth and what comes from it, who gives breath to the people upon it, and spirit to those who walk in it. I am the Lord. I have called you into righteousness. I have taken you by the hand and kept you. I have given you as a covenant to the people, a light to the nations, to open the eyes that are blind, to bring out the prisoners from the dungeon, from the prison, those who sit in darkness. What does it mean that our soul has worth? Isaiah says, look where the soul comes from. In case you're wondering, we're not talking about a soul that you can just go to the store and buy. We're not talking about a soul or something, a mentality, an attitude. We're talking about the very essence of life. And where does it come from? Isaiah says it comes from none other than God, the one who created the heavens, the one who brought breath into our lives, the one who is and always will be. This is where the soul comes from. It's not just something, it's everything. The soul, what does it mean that it has worth? Well, Isaiah helps us get this feeling that this soul that we have really is something special, is it not? It speaks to us, it informs us, it inspires us, it feeds us, it lifts us up, it calls us, it commands us to be our authentic self, the way that God has created us to be. The soul, it has worth. But what does that mean then? The so what about that? I don't know if you happen to notice this last week that in the confirmation hearings, I happened to catch quickly that Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey was, I would say, questioning, more like challenging Jeff Sessions. And he spoke about a phrase, a term. He simply said the arc of the moral universe is not just something that naturally bends toward justice. We have to bend it. Now, the interesting thing is, he borrowed this from Martin Luther King Jr., who had actually said that the arc of the universe is long and it bends toward justice. Martin Luther King Jr. actually borrowed it from Theodore Parker, who was a Unitarian minister in the 1800s. This concept that the arc of the universe bends toward justice is a journey. But you see, I think Cory Booker understood, as sometimes we do, that sometimes that arc gets flattened. And justice does not prevail. And justice does not go anywhere. It's happened in the past. You could write that it's happening now. And it will happen in the future. That's our humanity. That's our life. We understand that. So what happens when that arc gets flattened and it's not going toward justice? we help bend it. That's what Isaiah was saying, that God had called us to be a light to the nations, this special soul, this worthy soul that we have received as a gift from God, as part of who we are. That we are to be a light to the nations. We are to be that voice that is heard. We are to be the ones who bring sight to the blind. We are the ones who will help bend the arc of universe toward justice. Well, I figured out fairly quickly that in reality, I was asking the wrong question. That it wasn't if I had felt the worth of my soul. It was more, was I living a life that was worthy of my soul? And maybe that's a question that we all should entertain. Because that arc of the universe, it needs us to help bend it. And so maybe it's not just, oh, holy night. But could it be, oh, holy life? And that is our calling. Amen.
Amen.